Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the PGSMP server. We have got a very interesting task to take care of today, and it has to do with the Coliseum build that we highlighted in the episode from last week. Now, Evolve Cold has been working very hard on building that Coliseum, and there are two things that he needs to really put the finishing touches on it. One is he needs a bunch of dirt, and I have that in spades, so we're going to drop a bunch of that off. The other thing is a little bit harder to come by, and that's he needs some sponges in order to drain the water out of the inside of the Coliseum. So we are going to be setting off on an adventure to get our hands on some sponges. And I'm not really looking forward to it because ocean monuments are not the funnest thing on the face of the planet, but there are a couple of things that we will need to do in order to gear up for that. So you'll see here that I have some gear on hand in order to break some bedrock once we are there. We are going to need to make some additional potions of water breathing, which we should be able to get with our handy fishing rod here. Well, not get the potions, but we should be able to get the ingredients needed for said potions. We're just going to need a couple of pufferfish so we can make some potions of water breathing. We are also going to want some potions of invisibility to really throw off the guardians from targeting onto us. We actually can wear our helmet while we are underwater, and the guardians will not see us, but in terms of not being outright attacked, we are definitely going to need those. The other thing that we're going to need or want to keep an eye out for is we don't want to kill the Elder Guardians that are in this particular temple because they are wanted for a couple of additional projects. So we're really just there to raid for the sponges. However, I also feel like it would be beneficial if we were to drain out the temple itself. We'll still leave it submerged underwater, but we will drain it itself and use those sponges. So we're going to need to craft up a couple of furnaces, and I just used the last of my cobblestone on the materials for those pistons that I was crafting. So we're going to need to mine a little bit of that up before we make our way out. And great, these are worn leather boots, which is definitely not what I was looking for. So I'm going to cut away until we have the necessary materials on hand. So as I was working on this project, I figured that it was going to be a little bit more difficult than what was going to be displayed on camera. But as you see, we have completely drained out this temple area. It's now completely free of water, except for one final space that I wanted to go and clear up real quick here. And that should be, actually I think it's just right over here. Yep. So that should be very easy now with the different sponges that I have. And if you're looking to raid an ocean monument on your own, you will want to bring a hoe. Of course, netherite hoe is the most durable of the tools that you can use, but you could technically use just about anything and be okay. This is the new retconned or redesigned entrance that we have to this temple, and honestly, the only things that we have left to do around here is make sure that the different areas are well lit and lit up to the point where we're not going to have to worry about as many things spawning down here. Now, the guardians themselves are not going to spawn inside this temple anymore because of the water that is absent, as guardians can only spawn within water. But one other thing that was kind of interesting to note is there was a bit of an interesting terrain generation that happened here with this. I guess there was some sort of a drowned hotspot that spawned within this temple, and you can actually see that there are other bits of just random generation that's clicked in on that. So it certainly makes things interesting, to say the least. And adds some uniqueness to this build. Now, what's the plan with this building now that we have it drained? That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. There had been the idea of throwing it around as like a prison type build or prison area, but the verdict's still out on that. Now, we did save one additional guardian, and he's actually out on the nether side. So let's make our way back down this scaffolding so we can kind of introduce you to him where he's at. So as you can see, we have an Elder Guardian safely stationed here over the top of the nether ceiling. We also have a cow right here to counteract the effects of the mining fatigue, which I just got hit with, so we'll take that off of us right now. I do have some slabs on the top of this little retaining wall, and that is a temporary arrangement just to make sure that they are safe where they're at. But Cold, who I've been working on with this, is wanting to tour a little bit of this area and the new exit that was made up to the surface. So if we make our way up the scaffolding here, we should be able to see the different areas and influence that's up this way. And hopefully I don't get knocked around too much by these guardians. Now I'm going to play around with some farm concepts because having some prismarine or nice access to prismarine is always fun, well, and good. And then the last thing that I think I want to take care of while I'm over here is cleaning up the rest of the obsidian that's hanging out right over here from the old portal that we had. And just like that, we've got everything cleaned up. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this zone as we continue to work in and around it, for sure. Now, the reason that we have an Elder Guardian on some rails is the concept is using him to help prevent escape from a prison or jail cell type area, because, well, if you've ever tried mining with that mining fatigue on, it just does not pay out in your favor, and you just feel like you are useless. So it'll be interesting to start working with some applications for that as well. But let's head back over to our land to look at a couple of final items before we call today's video good. So one of the things that I had mentioned is we've got to drop off a bunch of this dirt, but let's kind of see what project Cold is working on with this dirt, or what he needs so much dirt for. As we highlighted in a previous episode, Cold is working on this wonderful little project of a coliseum, and he's currently attempting to line the floor with a bunch of this dirt to kind of keep a bunch of other things in place. So what we are going to do is we're going to kind of try and help him out with some of this where we can. And it's a particularly daunting task because as you hang out in water, especially under certain light levels, you're going to become accosted by some drowned, and that's never a fun thing to have to deal with. Let's see, I don't look like there's any currently, but because there's some dark spaces underneath where all of this dirt's already been placed, it's probably going to be pretty... it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. But this potion that I had lent to him should help us a little bit with speeding up this process. So let's see if we can finish this out. All right, so the floor is completely in on this coliseum. So the last thing that remains is placing in these sponges to take out the water. But the problem here is we're going to need to segment this area out in order to have the sponges have any sort of efficiency. Because, I mean, if you see here, it just kind of all fills back in if you try doing it on its own. And the strategy that we were using for cleaning up the temple itself actually worked pretty well, but we're definitely going to need to segment this area out. So I'm going to bring back a bunch of sand. But I did want to showcase one other thing real quick before we end the episode, and that has to do with these wet sponges. Now, everyone knows that once a sponge is wet, it needs to be dried before it can be used again. And what I have found that does numbers on lowering the time that you would spend on resources just waiting around to dry them, or really anything else, is you can just head into the Nether, and you can place the sponges down anywhere on the ground for them to dry out instantly, and that will just save you a ton of overhead when you are attempting to do any large project with sponges. But that's going to do it for me today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to hit that like button, as that greatly helps me out. And don't forget to subscribe as well for more daily content. But until then, thanks for your time, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.